10 jurors said guilty. 2 said not guilty. In Louisiana, that was enough to send a man to prison for life. But this verdict would expose America's last Jim Crow courtroom law and reach the highest court in the land. November 2014. New Orleans. Evangelisto Ramos sits in a Louisiana courtroom, charged with second-degree murder. The evidence against him is circumstantial. No murder weapon. No eyewitness to the killing. But the prosecution has built their case, and now 12 strangers will decide his fate. After deliberating, the jury returns. 10 vote guilty. 2 vote not guilty. In 48 states, that means a hung jury. A mistrial. But here's where Louisiana's dark secret comes into play. Under Louisiana law, 10 out of 12 is enough. Ramos is convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. But something about this verdict doesn't sit right. Why would Louisiana allow split jury convictions when the rest of America requires unanimity? The answer would eventually shake the foundations of American justice. To understand how Evangelisto Ramos ended up serving life on a split verdict, we need to travel back over a century. 1898. Louisiana. The state is reeling from Reconstruction. Black citizens have gained political power. They're voting, serving on juries, participating in democracy. And Louisiana's white establishment is terrified. So they call a constitutional convention. The stated purpose? Quote, to establish the supremacy of the white race. End quote. That's not interpretation. That's from the official record. Among the measures they adopt is a new jury rule. Criminal convictions would no longer require all 12 jurors to agree. 10 out of 12 would be sufficient. The reasoning was simple and sinister. If black jurors couldn't be kept off juries entirely, their votes could simply be outnumbered. If you're learning something new, hit that like button. Now, here's what most people don't realize. The Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the right to a trial by an impartial jury. For over 200 years, legal scholars understood this to mean a unanimous verdict. It's a protection against wrongful conviction. If even one juror has reasonable doubt, the defendant cannot be found guilty. But Louisiana argued their rule didn't violate the Constitution. And here's the disturbing part. In 1972, the Supreme Court actually agreed. In a case called Apodaca v. Oregon, the court ruled that states could allow non-unanimous verdicts. But wait. Let me put this in perspective. That 1972 decision was fragmented. No majority of justices agreed on the reasoning. It was constitutional chaos. And for nearly 50 years, Louisiana and Oregon used this fractured ruling to convict thousands of defendants without unanimous juries. Back to Evangelisto Ramos. His conviction stands. Life without parole. But his attorneys refuse to give up. They file an appeal, arguing that Louisiana's non-unanimous jury rule violates the Sixth Amendment. The case begins its long journey through the courts. Meanwhile, investigative journalists start digging into Louisiana's jury verdicts. What they find is staggering. Between 1993 and 2018, over 100 defendants were convicted of murder and sent to life in prison by split juries. 40% of those defendants were black. In a state where black residents make up only 33% of the population. The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't ancient history. This was systematic. This was happening in modern courtrooms. And this leads us to a question that would soon be argued before the highest court in the land. But here's what nobody expected. In 2018, Louisiana voters actually changed the law. By a margin of 64 to 36%, they passed an amendment requiring unanimous jury verdicts for future felony trials. Democracy worked. But that's not even the real story. Think about what that vote means. It means Louisiana's own citizens acknowledged the old system was broken. It means the state admitted, through popular vote, that for 120 years they had been convicting people under an unjust rule. Yet Evangelisto Ramos remained in prison. His conviction happened before the change. And Louisiana refused to apply the new rule retroactively. So a man sits in a cell serving life for a conviction that the state's own voters have now declared fundamentally unfair. If you're invested in seeing justice served, hit subscribe now because what happens next changes everything. October 2019. Washington, D.C. The United States Supreme Court agrees to hear Ramos versus Louisiana. The stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about one man's conviction. Thousands of prisoners in Louisiana and Oregon were convicted by split juries. If the court rules in Ramos's favor, decades of convictions could be called into question. The oral arguments are intense. Louisiana's attorneys argue that overturning Apodaca would create chaos in the justice system. But Ramos's attorney makes a devastating point. He reminds the justices of something they already know. The 1972 Apodaca decision had no clear majority reasoning. It was, in legal terms, a constitutional anomaly that never should have been allowed to stand. And then Justice Neil Gorsuch asks the question that will define this case. April 2020. The Supreme Court delivers its verdict. 6-3. Ramos wins. Justice Gorsuch writes the majority opinion, and his words cut straight to the heart of American justice. Quote, "There can be no question that the Sixth Amendment's unanimity requirement applies to state and federal criminal trials equally. A defendant's right to a unanimous verdict is fundamental." End quote. But Gorsuch doesn't stop there. He directly addresses the racist origins of Louisiana's law. He writes about the 1898 convention. He names the white supremacist intent. And then he declares that Apodaca, the 1972 decision, was egregiously wrong from the start. For the first time in nearly 50 years, the Supreme Court acknowledges that America's last Jim Crow courtroom law was exactly that. A relic of institutionalized racism that had no place in modern justice. Evangelisto Ramos's life sentence is vacated. The Ramos decision didn't just free one man. It sent shockwaves through the legal system. Hundreds of Louisiana prisoners immediately filed appeals, arguing their split-jury convictions were now unconstitutional. The court later ruled in Edwards v. Vanoy that the decision wouldn't automatically apply retroactively to all cases. But the damage to Louisiana's legacy was done. For 122 years, this state had maintained a jury system designed specifically to diminish black voices. And now, on the official record of the United States Supreme Court, that history